Hello there, how you going? My name's Adam. Welcome to Aduda Reviews. Today I'm going to be looking at my DVD collection. I've got some Blu-rays to show you and some 4Ks to show you. Come on now. Without further ado, let's have a look at them. Okay, to start off, I have Green Room. It stars Patrick Stewart of Star Trek fame and Anton Yelchin, the late great Anton Yelchin. And it is an A24 film. It's about a punk band who get booked to play this gig at this venue, but little do they know the venue is actually run by Nazis. It's all about them getting out of the venue alive. It's very tense. Can be sort of gruesome at some points. Very well acted, and it's just a thrill ride of a film, well worth watching. Next is Ari Aster's great film Hereditary. This is like such a intense, weird, unnerving film, and the main actress here, Toni Collette, does a really good job. She's so convincing as the tortured mother, and it's very strange, very spooky, very supernatural. I won't say too much more than that, apart from don't lose your head when you watch it. But yeah, if you've probably already seen it, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's a good film. It's a horror. It's horrific. Pearl, that's the sequel to X. Not quite as rewatchable as X for me. This was directed by Ty West, and it stars Mia Goth, who stars in X as well. This is also an A24 film, actually, so it's like 3 A24 films, but it's still a very good film. It's like a weird sort of homage to the 1930s Hollywood, and it's really well acted, especially her monologue is really good too. So that's worth watching, and I can't wait for the third part of that trilogy. Next is the John Landis directed classic that is American Werewolf in London. I watched this again recently and it still holds up, especially the transformation scene where he turns into the werewolf. It's just so good, and the fact that the makeup and everything still holds up today says a lot about today's CGI obsessed graphics and shit like that. It just doesn't hold up to those practical effects. And it's a fantastic film. Wes Craven's The People Under the Stairs. Now this on rewatch isn't as good as I remembered it being. It's still good. It's like a children's horror almost. It's not that scary. It's a little bit weird, a little bit camp, a little bit gimpy at points, but it is an entertaining watch, and about the weird house and the weird family and the weird people that live under the stairs. So it's worth a watch, but it's not scary in any way. Next I have The Dark Knight. I think I've got this on like all the formats, I think. Have I got this on 4K? No, I don't have it on 4K actually. But yeah, I've got this on regular DVD twice, I think, and I've got this one, I don't know why, I've just got it a lot. But it's a really good film. It's all about the Joker scenes for me, and they're such classic, quotable scenes, and it's my favourite of the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy. The Wolf of Wall Street, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, really funny, really fast-paced. It's quite a long film, but it doesn't seem that long, and Margot Robbie is just so good in this, and it's just a really fun film about the life and times of real life stock trader and sort of convicted criminal Jordan Belfort. So really funny and really entertaining. Clint Eastwood directed, Clint Eastwood starring Gran Torino, about an old geezer who's kind of grumpy, but he comes to the aid of this young Asian lad who lives next door to him, who gets himself in some trouble. A really good, heartwarming film, and it's got some good action type scenes in it. Really good film. The Crow, Brandon Lee's classic gothic 90s grungy movie. You've probably seen it. It's brilliant. It's got some really good scenes in it. I've done a video where I talk about this film exclusively. I can put a link to that down below if you fancy watching that. But yeah, really good film. M. Night Shyamalan's Split. I love this film. It's really good. I rewatched it not that long ago, and James McAvoy's performance in this is so good, where he's the guy with the multiple personalities, and the way he just like switches between the different personalities must have been like an actor's dream for him, but it was such a good film. The sequel to that, this, Glass, wasn't as good, unfortunately, and it kind of ruined what started off as a really good film, and the fact that it was linked to the film Unbreakable, which is also a really good film starring Bruce Willis. But yeah, this is really good, and especially his acting in it is fantastic. For some reason, I think I got it for £1 at the charity shop, and it's not that funny. It's nowhere near as good as the 21 Jump Street, which wasn't that great, to be fair, start with. Yeah, it's one I've watched maybe once and not really wanted to watch again, so I just have that. Batman Begins is a really good Batman film about his origins and everything like that. Christopher Nolan's first of the trilogy. It's my second favourite of the Batman trilogy. I still think it's really good, but I just like Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker more in The Dark Knight. This is one of my favourite films, maybe of all time, I don't know, but it's like up there. It's Paul Verhoeven's Starship Troopers, and Paul Verhoeven also directed RoboCop, and it has the same sort of satirical style to RoboCop, and it is just sort of tongue-in-cheek, but also just sort of really camp, but also like a B-movie type film, but it's just, and the effects still hold up, and it's just really good. It's really enjoyable watch, really exciting, fun packed thrill ride. The Back to the Future trilogy, I mean, there's nothing that needs to be said really. The Back to the Future trilogy. And I actually only got this the other day for £2 at the charity shop. It is the Dark Knight Rises. This is my least favourite in the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy, although Tom Hardy does put in a really good performance as Bane. I just think the story and everything about it just doesn't really hold up that well, and I really dislike Anne Hathaway's performance as the Catwoman in this. She just doesn't pull off Catwoman for me. She just doesn't do it justice, I don't think, the character. Very flat, very just not Catwoman-like. So yeah, those are my Blu-rays. And now on to the 4Ks. Come on now. Stand By Me. Based on the Stephen King book, The Body. It's a classic. It stars some of the kids that I would watch a lot as a kid myself growing up. It would be Will Wheaton, Corey Feldman, and River Phoenix, the late River Phoenix, and also starring Jerry O'Connell, who would go on to star in Sliders, and I used to love Sliders. That was such a good show. But yeah, getting off the beaten track. But this is such a good story. The story of some kids who are basically on their summer holidays from school, going in search, on a little adventure in search of this dead body that they know is buried by a train track somewhere. But yeah, it's the adventures and mishaps and hijinks that they get up to along the way, and it's a really good film. Pulp Fiction, Steelbook Case. I love this film. It's just such a good film. Quentin Tarantino's best. It's still his best in my opinion, but I think Quentin Tarantino himself would probably disagree, but I think he thinks Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is his best. It's still a really good film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but this is just, it's just so good. It's so rewatchable and so quotable. And yeah, I had to own this on 4K, and it looks really good on 4K as well. As does, actually this looks a bit better in 4K, I think, Reservoir Dogs. I think this is such a good film. This is another Quentin Tarantino's great, and this has the cool cover where the ear comes off, which I think is a nice little addition. But yeah, this 4K transfer looks fantastic, and the film itself is amazing. The Northman, directed by Robert Eggers, who directed one of my favourite films, The Witch. This rewatchability hasn't been that high for me, I must admit, but it was a really good film when I saw it at the cinema, especially because of the sound and the effects. It is a really good film, but it's just something I haven't really returned to that much, but maybe I'll give it a little bit of time and then come back to this. But it is a good film about Vikings and about just them being Vikings basically, but it's sort of like was it a Hamlet type tale where he's after the murderer of his father, who was his uncle or something like that. But yeah, great. The Lost Boys, classic, looks really good in 4K, about the vampires and the 80s, and when the vampire meets the 80s, and it's just really good. Blade is really good too. It's one of my first sort of Marvel films I ever really saw. I think it was one of the first Marvel films that came out, but the CGI doesn't hold up too well in this, I must admit. But it's Wesley Snipes who saves the day in this because of his martial arts skills, and it really sort of elevates the film, I think. It's really good. It's a really good action film. Paul Verhoeven's RoboCop. This is a classic, satirical, comedy, violent action film from the 80s that is just holds up so well today, apart from the scene where the guy falls out the window and it looks like claymation, but even that is still something that gives it this unique style. And the main actor, Peter Weller, does a fantastic performance as RoboCop. Part man, part machine, all cop. The Big Lebowski, great comedy from the 90s, really sort of laid back humor to it, but also a thrilling adventure of this guy trying to get justice for some fucker peeing on his rug, which is just not right, because it really brought the room together. But it's a really good film, and Jeff Bridges puts in a really good performance, as well as John Goodman, who's like great in this. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the third in my Quentin Tarantino collection. This is apparently his favorite movie so far that he's directed. It's really good. It is a really good film. It's based on 1960s Hollywood and the sort of decline and the change of Hollywood at that time, of the old golden age Hollywood stars. The only thing I don't like about it is the way they disrespected Bruce Lee in this film. They did the guy dirty, and I don't like it. But other than that, it's a really good film. Margot Robbie's in it. It's great. The next film is Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk, which is a really good World War II film. Amazing effects, amazing sort of camera work and footage that they do with this. Also, it has Tom Hardy as a fighter pilot in it, although he's not in a massive role in it. It mainly follows this one kid on his trek back to trying to get back home. And it's just, the sound is really good in it. I remember watching it at the cinema and the sound was amazing. This is a good 4K transfer, and it's a really good film. Arnold Schwarzenegger's Predator is an absolute 80s action classic, and it's a fantastic film. Nothing more needs to be said. As with The Shining, starring Jack Nicholson, that came out in 1980. I mean, that's old. And it's a great, weird horror film with some weird scenes that are very memorable. As with Carrie, and this is a really good... This is actually a Blu-ray, so this should have been the Blu-ray pile, but we'll let you off. This is Carrie, and it's the 1970s Carrie, not the remake that I didn't watch, but I'll probably never watch that because there's no need, because this is fantastic. Sissy Spacek plays the part of this weird, bullied, misunderstood teenager who suddenly gains telekinesis powers and then uses it to her advantage. It's just a really good film, and it still holds up to this day. John Carpenter's Christine, based on the Stephen King book, I believe, about the car with a mind of its own, and it's kind of like this evil car, and it has this weird love affair kind of thing with this nerdy kid, and this nerdy kid gets his revenge on the bullies by basically running over them with the car, basically, or doing some weird shit, because the car is alive and it wants revenge, and it's pissed off. This is the DVD I bought most recently, the 4K of They Lived, another John Carpenter film. As previously with Christine, it has some really good soundtrack to it as well, because John Carpenter's films really tend to have a really good soundtrack. Rowdy Roddy Piper is brilliant in this. And the big long fight scene he has with Keith David is brilliant. This is basically like a conspiracy theorist dream. It's all about how when he puts on these glasses that you can see aliens, and these aliens have been putting humans under mind control for years to consume and marry and live this life of drudgery. And Rowdy Roddy Piper doesn't take any of that shit, and he wants human freedom. And he's here to kick ass and chew bubblegum, but he's all out of bubblegum. And finally, in my 4K collection, this is a film that is written by Quentin Tarantino, but actually directed by Tony Scott. It's a really good film starring Christian Slater, has some really good cameos in it, including Gary Oldman, who plays a fantastic sort of white boy Rasta bad guy, and it's about true love, Elvis, and a shit ton of cocaine. Well, those are my DVDs. Thank you very much for checking it out. Let me know in the comment section down below which of my DVDs out of my DVD collection that you own and which is your particular favorite. And until my next video, I love you very much. God bless. Goodbye.